Yo, what's going on? This is Boy Beverly, and you're watching a 416 interview.
Kind of like inspired you to start writing songs?
My first step into music itself was I was 3 years old. My parents, they put me into piano, they put me into drums, guitar, and that was like religious. Like every day after school, it was like I had drums, and then I had guitar, and then I had piano lessons. And that was like every day for until I was like 13, 14. And then like any kid, I was like, fuck this, like I'm not doing what my parents want me to do, this and that. So I went into like the film industry and started working on YouTube and doing a lot of stuff like that back in 20, I'd say like 14. Like I started doing that stuff. And it was great, like it was great, but I then was like, shit, like I kind of like need to get back in like my music touch. Like I just like felt like this like music sense. So I got asked to film a concert in Philadelphia at the Trocadero, and I filmed that concert. And afterwards, the guys are like, "Hey, do you want to come back to like the studio for the after party?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not? Like, let's do it. Why not?" So I went back, and it was like I walked in, and it was like, like you come home from work or whatever it is, like it was like that. It just felt like I was at home. Like we were doing like riffs, and we were just no like it wasn't a normal session. We were just enjoying it, just like having fun. And then like 3 months after that, the engineer from that studio had called me and said, "Hey, do you want to like come down and record a couple tracks and like to see where it goes?" And I was like, "Yeah, for sure, let's do it." So then ever since then, it's like I was just like gone from there when it came to the music. So when I was a junior in high school, that's when I got picked up for my manager. And then I started working with Cecil Park, with James Flynn and his whole distribution company before it was Cecil Park. And I just went right into the music industry. I didn't go to college, and it's just been working out ever since. So it's kind of like I'd say like my first intro to like the industry.
When was kind of like the turning point for you when you just started creating music, for fun to have that creative outlet and then actually taking it very seriously and as a potential career?
Yeah, I mean, I would say when I switched studios, to be honest with you. I mean, before I was making a lot of hip hop music because I was just like around that 24/7. I was just like in the Philly scene, and like that's just like what it was back in that day. And I loved it. I thought I was gonna be like, the white rapper from my town or whatever it is, and like that just was not the vibe. So when my manager picked me up, he actually owned part of a studio. He brought me down there, put me in like a circle of like a bunch of really good people, like a bunch of people that had really good, heads on their shoulders and whatnot, and just some great engineers, producers. And I went off and I started making like pop music. So it was like a huge change, like from what I was making before. But he kind of just like saw in me like, hey, I think this is more an avenue for you that I think would work better. Let's try going with this. And so I had to cut a few tracks, and I was like, wow, like this feels way more like me. Like this feels exactly where I need to be. So I stopped recording in the city, and I was recording mainly like in the suburbs of Philadelphia. And my music just went from like rap to just like straight pop. But we had like I have pop rock in there mixed around. So I'm always gonna have like the some like that urban trap like elements like to some of the songs. But where I want to go is definitely in like the pop rock lane. Like I just want to continue staying in there. Just personally, I think that's where all the money is. But um, I it didn't suit me well. Didn't suit me well what I was before, but that was the transition point from when the music just became like real, if that makes sense. Like I started talking about things that were genuine to me, and that's when I truly started to take it seriously. And then obviously once you get your first couple paychecks, like you're like, okay, like I think I can do this, and then after a while you're just kind of already in the mix. And then I was just like, there's no need for me to leave this industry because I love it. And if I do try to leave it, I know I'm going to come back. So, like, that's why I've stayed in the industry. And that was definitely the transition point.
Talk to me about the Philly music scene because there's been a lot of prominent artists coming from there. Meek Mill, and then more recently, and I was just trying to like search him up. fuck, I don't want to get his name wrong, but his name is like Skrilla Baby or something like that.
Skrilla. Yo, he's like the king of Kensington, man. He's like right now. That's like it's really interesting because when I was recording, so Lil Uzi Vert, right? I was going to his studio for when I first started going. That he owned the studio, so he was always in there, and I was always having influence from him. So that's why, like, with me, the whole rap thing, it's like it all came from really from him. So, and I was young. I was like 14, 15 years old, dude. So it's like, you know, I was being very, very like just like eating everything that like they were saying and this and that. But like having someone like him, kind of show me around and this and that. He sheltered me like from certain things, but at the same time too, he showed me like, some of the darker sides of the industry and whatnot and like what that can be, and showed me like, if you go this way and you meet this type of person, they're probably going to take you to the wrong place. But if you go with this certain group, like, you'll probably do better with them. So it's like at first it was really hard to like figure out the whole scene when I was young because I was young, but with having Meek and Tierra Whack, who's another one who's like a big Philly girl, and having Uzi also, which is huge too there, it just had so much of an impression on me just because that's who I like grew up listening to. Like I grew up listening to Uzi. Like he was like my guy. And then when I was there with him all the time, I was like, this is great. I'm like, this is perfect. This is where I want to go. And like it's funny now. It's like I don't talk to him that much now. But I mean, like I was at his Pink party when he released his Pink album. I got invited to his release party, and like seeing him there, it was like it was like a big throwback thing because it's like everyone in Philly knows each other, which is like the really cool thing. Is like you all know about each other. Like if you haven't met yet, you know about them, and it's like you just the industry there is just so like almost kind of like domed out almost to where it's like you're rubbing shoulders with, like people like Uzi, like Meek, and like in the different studios and whatnot. Um, so I think it shaped me in the right way that I needed because it also gave me like that kind of like that grit almost. Um, like not taking any bullshit because coming from the East Coast is like kind of hard to like come out to LA and like take bullshit because we can kind of see it easier. Versus in Philly, they'll just like say it to your face like straight up. So that's why it's like I love Philly cultures because like people are just like they're not just gonna like go out of their way to talk your ear off about something that doesn't mean it. You know what I mean? So it's like the scene, it's constantly growing. I mean, it's been growing with guys from like Poundside Pop to Sal Sosa to Skrilla, OT7 Quani, like a lot of those guys, like they kind of have this new like Philly drill sound going on. I still am like trying to understand it myself. Like I listen to the beats, I listen to the production, all the different the vocals, and I'm like, how does like he get on top of this? Right? Like how is he doing that? Like it's its own thing, which is like it's pretty cool because it's like that's Philly's thing. So there's so much history like when it comes to like the music scene there, but it's just there's no foundation in Philly, which is the only thing that kind of sucks about it is because there's no labels there. There's nothing there, so you kind of are forced to go somewhere. And ultimately, that's what everyone does, but they come back. So it's like I know I'll go back to Philadelphia at some point. Like, I don't think I'll ever live there again, but I'm always going back and like seeing family and seeing the guys and all that. So Philly scene growing up was great, and I still think it is great because I mean, Philly people throw down.
What's behind the story behind your name, Boy Beverly?
Boy Beverly. I've changed my name many times, many times. In the beginning, the first thing, my name is 202. Uh, Literally, it was a street name, bro. And I saw it, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'll make that my name. And then it was like four, and then it was Noah, and then it became the Boy Beverly. And that like Boy Beverly like was the that was the one that took off. and like the whole brand behind Boy Beverly took off. So the how that whole name came to be was basically, I was flying out here for years, just back and forth, meeting with different producers and whatnot, and I loved it out here. It's like I've always loved it out here, and especially Beverly Hills is one of the things that I love. So how the name came to be was I would always see. I mean, you think of Beverly Hills, and what do you think of? Like rich, beautiful houses, and beautiful palm trees, and isn't that right? So for me, I was like, Beverly Hills. Like I started playing into that, and I'm like, it's almost not mean. It is me in a sense, but it's its own like visual representation and metaphor on its own, because everything can look good on the outside. Like, yeah, I can have chains on or bracelets or this or that, but like what's going on behind those doors, you know what I mean? Like there's pain in there, there's angst in there, there's stuff that goes on, behind the beautiful doors, and everything looks great, that is dark, you know what I mean? And it's like we all have pasts, we all have things that you know bring us down, wherever it may be. And it's like we always try to like put the facade up of like, everything looks great. I'm perfect. I'm this and that. And it's like I think as artists we have to like wear our hearts on our sleeves and just kind of like lay it all out there. So when it came to Boy Beverly, it was just like that was it for me. It was just like the polish on the outside can look great, but you don't know what's going on really on the inside, and like that was the whole name behind it, and that was just a dream that I had. I woke up, like I had a dream that I was in Beverly Hills and the name Boy Beverly, and then I went to a studio with who was there? It was Chance the Rapper and Tupac, and they were calling me Boy Beverly in the dream, and then I woke up the next morning and I changed my name, and that was that. So it was like a weird like overnight like epiphany type thing, but it ultimately worked out in the ways that I wanted it to. So it stuck, which is good.
What's your creative process like? Are you a freestyler? Do you like to write music? How's it look?
Never, never, never freestyle. Like I was saying, like I never knew how to freestyle. It just was not my swag. I never like could put my mind to it. Like it just never worked. But I just love to write songs because that's like my escape. Is like when I'm able to go and sit on the ledge of an outlook and just write a song. You know what it may be. And like I was saying to you before, I usually start with the production. So I'll make the music, whether it's me making it or the producers are making it, and we'll take that, and I'll usually get like a demo of that. It's like they're not finished with it yet. They'll usually just shoot me over like a quick demo of like what they're thinking about creating, and then I will like either approve, like by sending them back ideas or this or that. And if it's just like a song that I'm like a production that I'm like, I'm not feeling too good about this, I'll have them like try and tweak it. Like I never ever try to get rid of a song. Like if someone lays me or if someone sends me like beats or whatever it is like that, I'm always gonna try and make it work because excuse me, I just like I love to collaborate. Like that's one of my biggest things, and it's like I see so many artists now where they want to do everything themselves and they don't want to like pay the producers, they don't want to take care of their engineers or take care of their team. And it's like those are the people, like that's the backbone. You know what I mean? It's like without them, like I can't do what I can do. So it's like we all have to come together with each of our own creative processes and come up with one creative process for that specific session almost. But when it comes to me writing specifically, I usually will always, if we're in the studio making the music, we will strictly just do the production. And I'll usually go home and I'll write the song like day or two, come back later and I'll record the song. Um, and then I'll usually go about, like I was saying, like 6 to 7 hours. I'll take a session out and just do a bunch of takes, get as much as I possibly can because having more is always better because you can always delete. And I just think songwriting like that is just worth so much more because you can really, really story tell. And I think that's one of the things now that's really big is being super authentic with your fan base and like getting them to really connect with your music. um it's tough, but if you really really sit down and like just focus on it, you can write an amazing song. Anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. And some of the best songs that are made, like, were never supposed to come out because they were just like jokes, but they've blown up. You know what I mean? So it's like you never know what can happen. And like everyone's creative process is different, so you always have to have respect. That's another thing. It's like you have to have respect for someone else's creative process too, because they may be doing things differently than you. But I just try to be as collaborative as I can, and just take care of my guys the best way that I can, and just make the best possible piece of art. And I think that's the best answer that I could give.
I know you said that you went from making kind of rap music to pop music now as a genre. You even delved in a little bit of pop rock as well. Have you ever tried any other genres, or would you like to try any other genres when it comes to creating music?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've done a lot of like EDM. I've done a lot of electric dance music. Whether it's vocals for EDM artists or it's me making the production and I go and A&R that and sell it, I'll do that. There's like many cases where I've done that because I love to produce too. Um, but it's more of like what do I have to like prioritize in a way, you know what I mean? But I've tried R&B. It's a little too slow for me. I've tried the rap stuff. That's just like nowhere in the wheelhouse at all. um and the rock, like, I have rock elements in there which I love. I love live instruments. So when it comes to like that question, I would say I've tried a lot. There was, I mean, God, 3 years were dedicated specifically, 3 or 4 years were dedicated specifically just to like experimenting of like what the sound was even gonna be. And it has to feel right within yourself. So once it came to like pop and like pop rock and I started getting that type of production, I was like, whoa, I'm like super inspired to like, write to these types of this production and these types of beats versus, like a trap beat that's like a loop that someone just made and whatever. It's like very well like thought out songs basically.
I want to talk more about your distribution deal with Cecil Park and how that came to be. Do you mind just telling that whole story as to how you got into contact with Cecil Park? How did the relationship develop?
Yeah, so my manager, um when I got picked up as a junior, he you know basically what happened was I was not where I needed to be at the time for him to manage me, and he didn't even want to be a manager at the time. I basically forced him to be a manager, just because I believed that he had that in him, and he did. He really did have that side in him. So when we first started putting out music, we were independent, so we were doing it ourselves, um, and we would run into roadblocks where it would be like, you know, I would have a song come out, but it would like end up on other people's their pages, and I was like, why is my song on their page? Like things were just like super wonky. So you know and Mitch Beer, who was my manager, I still talk to him every day. He's one of the greatest musicians that I know. Um he he had said to me, hey, he's like, I have my buddy James, and he distributes music. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, well, what does that look like? Like, what's the percentages on that and all that? And he basically was like, what he'll do for you is he'll cut out all the bullshit. Like, if something's wrong, he'll be able to go into Spotify because he knows Spotify reps, or he'll know Apple Music reps, and he'll go in and be like, "Hey, this song's on the wrong platform. You need to get it switched over to here." So it made it like way easier. Like, yes, I had to like give a percentage, but he's taken care of so many things for me where it's been like, I text him and like, I'll be like, hey, can you change this artwork like before the day the song comes out? And he's like, sure, I'll get it done. Or he'll try his best to get me on different like DSP playlists and whatnot. And he just he's great at doing his job. Like he's just really, really good at doing his job. And when I was introduced to him, he was releasing my music for almost 4 years until he made Cecil Park like its own thing. Um, and then once he made Cecil Park, me and my manager we had split just because I was moving out here and he was staying back in Philadelphia. So it didn't make sense for us to, continue with that side of the relationship. But like we're still very, very close when it comes to all that stuff. And he's part of so many projects of mine. But afterwards, I signed with Cecil Park directly. And I was just working with them like hand in hand and they're just and James was a blessing because he really takes off like a lot of the stress that I would have like self releasing whether a lot of kids go like through DistroKid and like shit like that and it's like that's great and like I encourage people to do that but I also encourage people to like if you have the chance give up a little bit of a percentage to get your music on the right platforms on the right time like have everything correct because if everything's spread out, looks all weird, people aren't gonna like come to you with, you know, business. They just won't. You know what I mean? Because you're not shaped up in the way you need to be. So when it came to him, I was like, wow, like he has all my shit like shaped up, looks great, like and I can text him at any point, which is also great. And it's just been smooth ever since. So like I've never, like switched up with a different distribution label. Like I just haven't. Like I've just been with him, and I'm probably just gonna keep steady strong with him, just because I can't until someone gives me a reason not to, like be able to trust them, or they give me a reason like where I'm like, oh, I don't feel like that comfortable with it. Like I'm still gonna rock with you. You know what I mean? So it's like he's done his job. He's done it in the exact way he's told me he was going to do it, plus more. So it's like I can't fault him for anything, and it's worked. So everything's been smooth when it comes to like that. So that's like ultimately how I got involved with Cecil Park.
Cool. And another, like, I guess you could say a hot topic here, um, record labels. Have you ever thought about signing a record label deal? And what's your opinion on record labels?
Yeah. So I did sign a record label. I signed a deal when I was a junior in high school to a label in Philadelphia. And it was great. Except the control. That's the part where things can kind of get wonky. Because I was young. I was about 16 years old. So it's like when you have a contract slapped on your table and you're that young, you're like, oh, like this is cool. Like I get a record label deal. Like I'm doing this, sign whatever, without like reading the finer print about like really what goes into that. So in some ways, there's like I've been fucked over in some areas, but my thing I would say labels versus being independent. I would say stay independent as long as you possibly can. Like as long as you possibly can, stay independent. You will need a label. Like that's one of like the I don't know if I want to even call it a sad truth, but it's one of the truths of the industry is like if you want to get on the Hot 100, it's like you're gonna have to have a label back you because they're the ones that are putting up all the money for the top 10 to make sure that Taylor Swift, The Weeknd, like all their heavy hitters are getting those number one spots so they can continue to make that money. Um, if the right record label came to me with the right deal, I would consider it for sure. And it really depends on what that deal looked like. Um, and it really depends on everyone's deal is different, but it would just depend on like that the specifics of the deal for me. And if I think that it would benefit me and it would benefit the label, I'd be like, let's do it. Let's work together. Let's try this out for a year, 2 years, and let's see how it goes. Um, but I mean, I've gotten offers and I still will turn them down just because it's like, I want to keep pushing along in the way of what I'm doing right now because I do have a good team behind me. And we have some really cool records and we're doing some really cool stuff this year. That, I don't need that label for. You know, I was playing stages with, you know, some of the EDM artists, like at Lost Lands, which is like the Super Bowl of, you know, EDM. And it's like I didn't need a label to get there. You know what I mean? Or, you know, playing at like Dobbs on South, which is, you know, a famous spot in Philly for where Metallica played, and like AC/DC. Like I didn't need a label to get there. You know what I mean? So there's like different stages that I've been around in the country where it's like a label didn't put me there. You know what I mean? And it's like I think a lot of kids nowadays, I was one of them, come in and they're like, "Oh, I got to get a record label deal. That's what I have to do." And it's like slow down. It's like slow down. Like, you know, find your sound, figure out what you want. You know, learn from your peers. Like I like to walk into every room, whether it's a meeting, a board meeting, or just a session. Like I'm usually the one that's the quietest one in the room, because I just love to like retain the information of what everyone else is saying, internalize that for myself, and then implement it if it's like, you know, correct. Like I'll implement it into what I do. And I think that goes a long way. But I would just, my advice is just stay independent if you can, because you will make a shit ton more money. Because the labels love to take their percentages, and it's usually like a, sometimes like a great record deal would be like 80-20, but like that's rare. You know what I mean?
80
Like,
artists, 20 record label.
no, opposite, other way around. Yeah. So like it can get really really tricky, especially with some of like the bigger labels like Sony, Interscope. Like some of them like can get like, you know, they're a little bit more stingier, but like they can do so because they have that name. Like everyone knows that name. You know what I mean? So like it holds power. And it's also, I'll say this too, don't sign to a record label if there's someone on that label that sounds exactly like you, because a lot of the time record labels will pick up artists and then just shelf them, that way that they won't get in the way of their other artist that's making a wave. So they will just like snatch you up and then won't let you release any music at all, and that's like the worst feeling.
What's the point of that?
The point of that is to basically make sure that there are other artists who are a little bit bigger are not in competition with someone else that's coming up that's making better music. So it's like they will, yeah, it's pretty fucked up. Like
So they'll literally just go out of the way to fuck you over just so their artist stays on top.
that's in the back of their minds. Like they'll say to you, "Oh no, we're gonna push you and do this and this and no." Like they're like they will take your music, and you'll call them and be like, "Hey, like when can I release my songs?" And they'll be like, "Oh, we're not releasing that for another 5 years." And you're like, "What?" You're like, "What do you mean I'm not releasing it for another 5 years?" And it's like it's all because they want to make sure their big artists continue to get sales, continue to get heard, versus a smaller artist where they could pump money into them, but they don't know if they're going to make, you know, this wave, if they're going to get bigger than that artist. And that's a scary thing for a label to have. You know, let's say it's like I don't know, let's say like an MGK, right?
Yeah.
And then let's say I come into whatever label he signed to, and they would probably shelve me. They'd probably take my stuff and shelve it because it's very very similar. And I mean, it's almost kind of like with Cecil Park. You know, one of the other guys signed. His name is 44 Phantom. He's a really 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 great artist. And we're like the only two on the label that I feel like make the same kind of sound. Like we have the same kind of, you know, pop rock pop, you know, aspirations to keep going in that area. Um, Versus some of the other guys who are a lot more like hip hop and just like straight like trap. So I always thought, you know, like me and 44 were like the two that could like team up and like really, you know, do something special. Um and still waiting on that. But I think, you know, once that happens, that'll ultimately be cool. So in those ways, like labels can like very much tie you to the right people. They can, you know, put you in the right rooms, but you're also giving up like half your life. You're giving up so much percentages and whatnot. So you have to have leverage. Like you have to build a sturdy fan base for them to come to you, basically, and be like, "Hey, like, what do we have to do to get you?" And then it's on your terms because you have leverage. So that's ultimately where you know, I want to be at that point where I have, you know, as much leverage as possible to where I can walk into the meeting and be like, hey, if I'm not going to be able to get this and this, you know, I'm not going to sign the deal, because I want the creative control. You know what I mean? And a lot of the labels they don't give you that, and like that's a huge thing because I'm a stickler for like the visuals have to be like super compelling. Like I'm a very like cinematic, visualistic person, because at the end of the day, it's like, and I'll say this live, I don't care. I don't have the best voice in the world. You know what I mean? Like I I just don't. My special qualities come into like when I'm performing is like the energy, getting the crowd involved, the visuals, just like the online presence, interacting with fans, and like, you even at this level, it's like you gotta comment at every single fan. You gotta make sure that they feel like they're your family because without them, there's no us. Like that is just the truth of the matter, and I see it too often where artists like people will come up to them and ask for a picture. And it's like, I get it, like some instances where, they don't want to be bombarded or whatnot, but it's like, the reason that you can eat is because of that person right there. And it's like, don't go and kill, like, that kid's hero, because I've met, my heroes and I've been like let down, so it's like, I never want to be that artist of where, people feel like they can't come up to me and they can't come talk to me because it's like, no, I want to talk to you. Like, I want to know about your life. Like, I want to know, why do you listen to me? And, like, how did you find me? And, like, how can we, be like a family almost? Like, that's how much, like, I really love the fans because it's like we're family and it's like we're building together and it's like I don't want to jump right to the top. Like I don't want like an overnight type of thing. I want just like slow and steady because that's gonna build that foundation of a fan base that's ultimately gonna hold in the end. Like I'd rather have if it came down to it, I'd rather have 20,000 diehard fans than a million fans and you know 800,000 of those are, like iffy fans. If you know what I mean, like I like my just like my sturdy people that are going to be there. So stay independent if you can, and then when you're ready to sign a label because you're going to have to. So that's what I will say for that.
You kind of answered the next question as well, but I'm gonna just ask it in case you want to add anything to it. What's your advice to new artists?
My advice to new artists, this is gonna sound so cliche and everyone says it and then people used to say it to me and I was like, fuck off, like give me something different. But it's just like be yourself. Like that's the only like that's what the biggest thing I can say is like don't try and go and be, the artist that you love or whatnot because we have enough Lil Uzi Verts out there. We have enough of, whoever it may be. It's like we're in the industry right now is in such a weird place that it's like you gotta create and you gotta experiment. You gotta do different things. Everything is it's not the way it's not 2016 anymore. You know what I mean? Like I know we all talk about 2016 and how amazing those years were. Trust me, that was the one of the greatest years ever. You know what I mean? That was like Denzel, Lil Yachty, 21 Savage, like all like that's when hip hop became like hip hop with the XXL freshman like freestyles. So um I don't know, man. I think it's just it's you just have to be true to yourself and you have to really be hungry for it. Like you have to understand that you're gonna get told things you don't want to hear. You know what I mean? And like sometimes that deters people a lot, and they're like, "Oh, like that was too much. I'm never coming back in the industry." And for other people, they're like, "Oh, this is exactly what I need." For me, it's like I want to continue to learn. So it's like I'm always if someone critiques me or this and that, I don't see that as like, "Oh, fuck you," like I'm better than you. It's like no, like tell me why. Like let me retain that so then I can take that back and go and work on that. And then hopefully when I present the next piece it improved since the last time. Um, so I don't know. I mean, it's definitely a loaded question. But yeah, I really truly believe that you just have to have a true passion for it and a love for it because it's not easy. You really have to have thick skin. And you have to know, like, and like, don't be afraid to experiment in all different like genres. You know what I mean? Like that's what you should be doing. People think, oh, I gotta be just this. It's like no, you don't. Like, you can be whatever you want. You can make an R&B song. You can make a pop song. You can make an EDM song. Put them all out in the same week, and it's like that's what I think kids should just be doing nowadays. Just create, put it out. Create, put it out. Because that's just what ultimately just like keeps it flowing. And like I felt like I've been stopped so many times because I've put so much pressure on myself to be like, oh, you have to create like this hit record. And then it comes out and it's like, didn't do the hit record numbers that you thought it was going to do or this or that. You know what I mean? Um, so it's like, you have to take all of that and understand like all you need is one. You need one record, you know, one record to like put you on a little bit, and then you have to jump through that window as fast as possible and follow it up with something equal to what you just put out. I say this a lot. It's like one of my buddies in Philly, Armani Blanco. He came out with that song Billie Eilish, that Glock Tuck Big T shirt Billie Eilish. And that was, huge and whatnot. But he's been doing it a while, and he was never afraid to just like jump into like any different style of music. Like he was always just experimenting for the longest time. And it's like ultimately you keep crushing it, you keep pushing forward, like you will get noticed. And it's like people think that the bigger artists don't like notice the smaller artists. Like that's the biggest lie I've ever heard, because all the big artists know all the small artists before you even think that they know you, and they're watching because they're seeing the competition come up, and they have to continue, rising. So I just think you put your heart into it, and if you're just like a good person and like you just want to make good music with good people, like that's just how you should approach it. Like never approach it with anything other than that, because it's like if you're not approaching it like that, then you're ultimately approaching it for the wrong reasons, if that makes sense. And it's like the goal is it's never to get famous. Like that's not the goal. You know what I mean? It's like that's just something that comes with this type of industry. You know what I mean? Like it comes with that. And I always hate when people are like, "Oh, like famous." It's like everyone's like a normal human. We're all human, man. You know what I mean? It's like no one is like this like god. Like I shouldn't even be saying this on this interview, but like everyone considers Beyonce like this fucking god, and I'm like, what? I'm like, from where? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm not throwing hate in. Like I love like she's breaking out into different genres, but like to win Cowboy Carter for the number one country album of the year is a little crazy for me. So it's like that's why it's like the industry is it's a very funny industry. It's a very cutthroat industry. Be around the right people. If you feel like you're around the wrong people, switch it up as fast as possible because it'll never end well. And just take your time. Just like take your time. Take it slowly. Take it easy. Like don't rush. You will get to where you want to go. Everyone that I know that is big now started slow. And like that's ultimately how you're going to win is slow. You never win jumping to the top. Because if we look at everyone that jumped to the top, like let's take like yeah, she does stuff in the industry, but like Megan the Stallion, the baby, like they had great runs, but like where are they now? You know what I mean? It's like you gotta stick to yourself and just continue pushing, and like I think that's ultimately the biggest piece of advice that I can get is just keep going. Like never stop. Don't ever let your creativity, put you down, or don't let anyone tell you differently about what you're making. Like just do you. Like that's the biggest thing is just do you. So yeah.
Lastly, let us know what you got coming out. What are you working on currently? Any new singles, EPs, albums dropping soon?
So I have a bunch of new singles that I'm gonna have coming out. I don't have them all on like date yet wise. Um
Uh-huh.
I do have a bunch of music videos coming up. I do have dates for that, but I won't drop those dates yet because I'm sure we'll do another interview by then, and then we'll be able to go back on everything. Um,
Yeah.
I have a couple shows this year. I have a couple in Philadelphia. Um, I'm trying to get like my first one like out of the U.S., which is cool. I've been working with this studio out in Grand Cayman, and
Okay.
we have been trying to put together this festival for Grand Cayman. So I'm trying to put that together, and that should be pretty cool.